Time now for the weigh-in here right now on the MMA Hour. No better way to kick off the show than with that. Let me show a graphic on the screen, if I may. Danny in the back, please put it up. I had sent it to you before the show. A lot of folks ask for reading recommendations, and I always want to give one. I'm not about to do a book review. I don't care about that per se. So the graphic didn't work. All right, well, can you put it on the screen instead of this one, like the front screen? The viewer screen? No? Yes? Potentially? In any event, there's a book called The Death of Expertise. It's written by a guy who goes by the name of Tom Nichols. You don't really need to know who he is. He was a longtime policy expert in Washington, D.C. on Russian affairs, teaches at the Naval War College and a bunch of other places. But the book was about something kind of interesting. It's about what is expertise? How do you obtain it? What verifies it? What are its limits? What are its failures? What are its purposes? What are the role of experts in society? Now, I don't care about any of that stuff, but there was one chapter about predictions. And in the book, he makes a central argument, namely that some measure of predictions are not only important and that you have to do them, but essentially they might even be required by the job. However, that's really not what expertise is about. Expertise is about understanding the present and then historically why things have happened. Very little of it actually is looking forward. Some, yes, but really not much. It's about looking back and trying to piece together how events transpired, why, understanding events and people and the interactions between them, and that kind of thing. That's really what expertise is, or if you're a biologist, why basic things happen in the organic world. You understand what I'm saying. It's about the present and looking past. Very little of it is the predictive future because there are so many variables. It can be hard to get things right. And you might overemphasize certain measures of your own expertise and really not understand how the future will work or how your expertise could even be really helpful. You could misunderstand that. Now, why is that relevant to UFC 228? Because Tyron Woodley wins. You can show the graphic if you want to show the people here for just a second. Tyron Woodley wins, and I saw some people saying things about Darren Till. And they were saying, well, the UFC got behind another one that just couldn't get it done. And of course, he did lose. But I'm not really mad at them for getting behind Darren Till. Weren't you excited by Darren Till? I know I was excited by Darren Till. Look at his social media numbers. Look at the numbers on videos that he's on. Look at the crowd response. People like Darren Till. People were interested in Darren Till. And then the fact of the matter is prospecting in MMA, even among experts at the UFC, is very difficult. Now, I realize they might be getting behind certain people, not necessarily out of good faith. We're just trying to figure out who's who, but out of bad faith, we like someone more than the next. But let's put that aside for just a minute. I'm not mad at the UFC for getting behind Darren Till, for getting behind exciting contenders. It's okay. Figuring out which ones are going to be massive successes is very, very difficult. And so did this one work out on Saturday? No. I still think he's got a bright future. At 25 years old, there's still a lot more he can do. But the point being is as follows. In terms of predicting the future, even the best organizations like the UFC, they're just going to get some things wrong. It's not possible to see into the future and understand exactly who's going to blow and who's not going to blow. But it got me to thinking about Tyron Woodley. So even though I'm not mad about the UFC making a really big push about Darren Till, it doesn't make a lot of sense that they're not now getting behind Tyron Woodley. Now, here's what I mean. Let's go over some of the numbers and some of the facts about him. He has KO'd Jay Heron, Josh Koscheck, and Robbie Lawler. He TKO'd Carlos Condit and Dong Hyun Kim. He beat the 185 title contender in Kelvin Gastelum. Now, the Marquardt and McDonald losses do count against him. All losses do. But that UFC 161 fight against Jake Shields, you can go back and watch it. That's a very different Tyron Woodley. You could have scored it for him anyway. And I would very much favor Tyron Woodley to beat today's Jake Shields. Nate Marquardt's not even in the sport anymore. And McDonald could be interesting. You look at some of the stats, people have asked, where does he rank among all-time welterweights, Tyron Woodley? Well, here are some facts in addition to the resume that I just gave you. Number one, Woodley has landed more significant strikes per minute than Matt Hughes. A lot of people say GSP is the all-time best welterweight, and I'm inclined to agree, but after that, it gets a little bit murky. Probably you think Hughes is too. Maybe you think Lawler is up there. It can be a bit of a debate. But if we're talking about Hughes, Woodley has a better significant strikes per minute figure than Matt Hughes. His takedown defense, Tyron Woodley's, is almost 3 times as good, 94% accuracy in terms of his own takedown defense. He is third all-time among welterweights for knockdowns with 10. Matt Hughes isn't even on that list. You know where GSP is? He's tied for 9th. Tyron Woodley is third all-time in significant strike defense. Now, GSP is, number 1, because he is GSP, but Hughes is not even on that list because he's second all-time in significant strikes absorbed. Now, what is the point in making all of this and reading all of these facts and figures and going over his resume? Here's my point. Once again, it is okay. It really is for the UFC to get behind exciting contenders. Darren Till was and still remains an exciting contender. You were excited. I was excited when he beat Donald Cerrone. And sure, the Wonder Boy fight wasn't necessarily going to blow the doors off everybody, but it was in Liverpool, and they showed up, and it felt like something big. And yeah, he missed weight. We all know the story, but you can't sit here and say there haven't been times in Darren Till's run in the UFC when you didn't get the spidey sense, when you didn't get a little tingle, when the hairs on the back of your neck didn't stand up for a time. It happened to almost all of us. Are you really going to be mad at the UFC for getting behind that guy? And by the way, did you see the BT Sport promo they did on him? It's about as good as they come. It's about as good as they come. But here's the truth. If prospecting is hard, and even experts get it wrong, it is impossible to not understand the value of Tyron Woodley. Look at his resume. Look at his stats. We're talking about an all-time great in that division, and that division might just be the best one in the sport. I can't forgive them for not getting behind Tyron Woodley, not now. The future is hard. The present and the past is quite knowable. What does Tyron Woodley need to do now to get corporate backing? And if you're asking what I'm talking about specifically, it's the lack of Dana White showing up at the post-fight press conference. Now, here's the truth. Maybe you watching, you know why he didn't show up. I don't know why he didn't show up. It could be there was a family emergency. Truly, I mean that. So I don't know. And if it was something like that, then it's a shame that he couldn't be there. But I understand. But if it's not that, then it's shameful he didn't show up. This is a guy whose resume, as I just indicated, is phenomenal. This is a guy who on Saturday held exciting contenders to a whopping 2 strikes, submitted him in the second, made it look easy. This is a guy who's beaten the who's who in his division. This is a guy whose numbers back up him being, at worst, 3rd or 4th best all-time at welterweight, maybe even 2nd best. This is a guy who's a family man. This is a guy who is from a rough part of the country and found a way out. This is a guy who not only has been a good father, but comes from a good parent. This is a guy who pays for his own marketing. This is a guy who never gets in trouble. Ladies and gentlemen, what has to happen for the lights to go on? Seriously, what else do I need to say to you? He knows how to do media. He's one of the best analysts on Fox. He pays for his own promotion. He has a show on TMZ, for crying out loud. When he wins, for the most part, dominantly. His all-time resume, his body of work, is nearly beyond reproach. And no one backed him up on that night after the fight. Why is that important? It's not just a show of solidarity. It's more important than that. The basic idea is that you have these junctures in your career where everybody is paying attention. And having third-party validation at that moment is so critical. It's not to say that if they come out later and do something for him, that it will be irrelevant. No, that's not what I'm saying. And again, maybe there is an explanation for why Dana White wasn't there. But what I do know is, best case scenario, an opportunity was missed. A big, big opportunity. This is a no-brainer. This is an easy call. This is very simple. And even his biggest detractors after Saturday are beginning to realize it is getting tiresome to criticize a guy who just keeps excelling. It just gets old, and it wears thin, and it doesn't really work anymore. If the fans can realize that, if the media, which in large part has already known that, can realize that, maybe corporate brass should too. And that he did it off of a 13-month layoff and held a guy who was basically a middleweight to 2 strikes, and he can't even get a pat on the back at a press conference. It's either a shame or it's downright shameful. And that's the way in. All right. We have to do this. We have to change things up. There's the book, by the way. Can you put the book back up over Danny's face in particular? It looks good when it's covering him up. This is the book. It's called The Death of Expertise, Tom Nichols. Again, it's not about MMA. It's very digestible. You can read it probably very quickly. It's only 200 pages and some change. And it goes over this predictive argument that I have been making.